So referrals are the best lead source in the world until you want to grow, because currently you might have an exceptional £5,000 plus service, you build a localized reputation, and then you get referred your next £5,000 plus client. So even with capacity to grow, paying clients, and real results, you might still experience the feeling of uncertainty, right? And the perceived risk with, for example, hiring new staff, because currently months are unpredictable and planning is close to impossible because growth is currently capped by what you can't control. So that is referral/reputation driven growth, which is why you've probably tried online, because logically right now you're accessing a tiny proportion of your total addressable market, where online should in theory have the ability to access a massive subsegment which currently doesn't even know you exist. That's until you see a world filled with discounts, gimmicks, deals, low intent inquiries, and everything you see looks cheap, noisy, and even a risk to your reputation. So we're in a position now where referrals are delivering trusting, confident, and aligned buyers, but not enough of them. And online is just delivering skepticism, hesitation, and price sensitive inquiries. And it's just adding a ton of complexity and headache to growth, right? The likelihood is you have everything required to create predictable and controlled growth online and build online into your most reliable source of 5 to 50K plus clients. The problem is most digital marketing is built to sell cheap things to a lot of people, and that model breaks when the decision is over £5,000. So I'm going to show you now exactly how to build online into your most reliable source of 5 to 50K plus clients and how to create referral caliber conversations online. So if we look into what actually makes referrals so good, it is simply because they arrive trusting, familiar, outcome aware, educated, and decision ready. If we look at what most online setups do, you'll see we might have a single ad to a book a call, get a quote, schedule a consultation, and the outcome of this is pretty low trust. Okay, it's a 30-second video. You're not really going to build the trust and context required for somebody to take an action with genuinely high intent. So number 2 is your basic online presence. You've got the website, you've got the social media platforms, and the outcome here is a very passive online setup. So we're not actively creating demand unless you've got an audience already of thousands and thousands of people. Your social media will likely have very low visibility. It is essentially waiting and hoping to be found. And number 3 is, for example, your Google keywords. You might think that this is, an active form of growth, but in reality, Google captures real-time demand and doesn't actually create demand. So it captures people as they're actively searching, but not actively getting in front of people on their day-to-day. So how do we make online work for a 5K plus service? We need to maximize market visibility. Then we need the sequence that builds what referrals naturally create, and then we lead them to commitment. So for example, here we have the average online ad setup. So you maximize the attention side, but we lose what referrals create. And referrals obviously lack heavily on attention, but heavily rely on these 2 other pillars. Okay, so what we want to do is essentially build a high ticket digital buyer journey with each of these 3 pillars present. So number 1, like we said, attention, being the ability to get in front of your market at scale, repeatably. And number 2 is the ability to build trust and confidence required for a prospect to self-select and progress to take an action, like scheduling and actually inquiring. And number 3 is the ability to get prospects decision ready before a call/conversation actually occurs. And that is how, with these 3 pillars, we can get people from completely unaware you exist to aware, trusting, educated, qualified, and genuinely decision ready. So here's a really simplified breakdown of how I did this for a 200K plus ghostwriting/book writing company. For example, for attention, we had 2 separate funnels. One that went down to a live mastermind recording. So that's obviously then trust and education building. People would likely see the mastermind first, and they would be hit with the value-driven conversation funnel secondary. And we also had a third retargeting funnel, which was just going to warm traffic, which was case study landing pages. And of course, on top of this, we had our priming sequences. I pulled podcasts, YouTube clips, presentations, and just built upon that until this whole engine continues to run 24/7, bringing in qualified inquiries, and the inquiries that haven't come through yet are still being built and warmed up on the front end. So referrals are the best lead source in the world. Okay, they're warm, high quality, and built on reputation, but they put you in a cycle of waiting for growth you cannot control. And online underperforms because the buyer journey required for a 5K plus decision is just incomplete. So even though what's required is simple in concept, you need the clarity to know what to action, right? So we need to know how your buyers currently experience you online, right? Where the trust is currently being built and where it might not be, where intent might be leaking, and why conversion quality may not be super consistent right now. And that's what the digital diagnostic is for. In a one-on-one session, we'll make a precise map of how buyers currently find, understand, and engage with your business online. You'll get a clear understanding on the gaps that are slowing growth, leaking intent, or currently lowering buyer quality, and exactly what would be required to make online a reliable source of 5 to 50K plus clients for your business. And there's no obligation here, there's no pitch, just clarity you can action immediately. I'll leave a link below in the description. You can book your digital diagnostic there.